This is a Heart and Hand production.
Hello, roll up. Welcome to the Rangers Circus. We are back in town with more nonsense for you on this Friday. We've been away. Adam was away, and then I was on holiday. And I think it's fair to say much has changed since our cheery, optimistic outlook before the break. Yeah, here's the new Rangers, same as the old Rangers. Adam, how you doing?
Good, yeah. Couple of weeks off for everyone involved, I think, has been the order of the order of the last few weeks. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. I think we should be used to it by now.
We should be, and yet. There's loads to get in. We try and be quite nippy with these things and tie them up quite short order, but there's a lot to get through. I think it's fair to say the last time that we spoke was just in that Scottish Cup semi-final weekend, just before, or maybe just immediately before the split happened.
Yep.
And got started. And I think my position then was that I felt we might just come up a little bit short because of the fixtures of the split, but I was actually okay with kind of the general trend that we were on, the general trajectory that we were on. It felt like we were making progress. You've spoken long and hard about certainly the more attacking elements and the amount of goals that we're scoring compared to the kind of turgid, stodgy, suffocated Rangers teams of the past few years. But, you know, the manager was worth kind of backing. I still had doubts about this difference between being a coach and being a boss and making big decisions in game, obviously, you know, pre-match with selection, all these kind of things. But you rightly said he has got big decisions right as well. I guess it just doesn't need to be 100% of one of the other. That was my big concern, or my only concern, really. Even I, Adam, didn't see this coming, and it's been quite the collapse. And culpable responsibility is probably fair to say at play all round, because everyone has a fair share of the blame. Can we try and go through just how this kind of fell apart? Because the two of us have been away, certainly off the airwaves, for some time. If I remember correctly, at the end of that show, you, who've been saying ages, everyone says, you know, Rangers are the favourites here, all the trends. Ultimately, computer said no, but even you were starting to get just a wee bit tight and edgy before that Motherwell game. What has gone wrong?
Yeah. So yeah, I think my position, maybe naively, was Rangers were scoring a lot of goals, creating a lot of chances, and that is fine. The sort of data, if you like, can suggest that, but it can't. It's not a magic wand that can say the likelihood is this will continue. And if we're honest, it did continue. We created a lot of chances at Motherwell. It's just in the Motherwell game, it's just a completely different scenario, and that's why these binary things, I guess, don't always work with a game as random as football. I think my final position before we finished the last show was, regardless of what happens, I think unless there's a complete and total collapse, I think I'll still be relatively happy with the way things are going. I think it's fair to say there has been a total collapse, and I don't think many people have seen it coming in that sense. Yeah, the manager is an interesting one for me. I'll always go to tactical reasons for things. And I think the manager's naivety, I think, is something that has been a bit of a warning. If we want to go a little bit further back and look at those run of draws, at the time, I thought, well, it's not the end of the world because we're not losing any ground on the other teams, because everyone's getting the same amount of points. And that is fine, provided that you then make up the ground at some point. But looking back, maybe that point, I can't remember the exact game. Was it the Motherwell game where we were leading going into the final stages? And I think if we were then to play Hearts the weekend and beat them, we would have went top. I think that that now feels like quite a big one for me. And that maybe feels like, again, we said the manager I thought made the wrong substitutions in that game, and it is a huge factor. I think maybe the biggest factor. We can talk about mentality and all those things, but both things can be true. And I think that's something that maybe a lot of people get lost with a little bit. It doesn't always have to be one thing or the other thing, and I'm guilty of that myself. However, I will always look to those things, and I think those substitutions there to see out a game weren't great. It didn't work. I'm going to discount the Hibs game because it was a farce from start to finish. Start of the evening to finish, as we'll come on to. But those 3 games, Motherwell, I've said on the flagship show, I thought he got that wrong. He didn't, for me, playing Asgard and Gassama as a 2 behind a front 2 isn't going to work. They got pulverised by Elliot Watt. They can't press, therefore they ended up in no man's land. Therefore, the midfield 2 gets slaughtered. And that was always going to happen. So naivety, I think, from the manager, not about the shape or anything like that. I just think if you're going to commit to that shape, you need to play players in there that can work off the ball and can press and can harry, because that is key for this. It is risk reward. And then Tynecastle and Parkhead, he sort of reverted to that cautiousness that isn't going to work. If we're honest, that sort of pre-Christmas type where it felt like he got stung a little bit and thought, right, I'm just going to sit back. We had to go and win those games. So changing back to a midfield 3, everyone's screaming for it. That is great, provided you have a midfield 3 who can do what a midfield 3 should do. We don't. We have 4 players who are all broadly similar. None of them can really pass the ball very well. None of them can sense danger in a huge way, albeit Connor Barron is probably the best at it. None of them are tempo setters. None of them can do what we need in those games. 1-0 up at Tynecastle, getting battered in that opening 10 minutes of the second half. Do you have someone that can just put your foot on the ball and pick passes? That's what I think as well, that mentality and technical ability sort of converge, because if we did have an inspirational player in there, someone who's been and done it all in the middle of the park, and they still can't set the tempo technically, then I don't think you're any further forwards in terms of where you are. That's why I think it needs to be both. It needs to be someone who is a winner, has that mentality, but also can actually do the technical things that you need them to do.
But one flows from the other, though, mate, doesn't it? Mentality flows, confidence flows from knowledge about ability, and maybe is it ability, reliability. I think we have come away in the bus or in the cars or whatever, or on WhatsApp after the team that took the field at Tynecastle or at Parkhead or whatever, and we've spoken about probably every one of those players, almost every one of those players at some point this season said, he was great today. Even the ones that you don't think so, I bet you have even had to concede that they had a good game, even if you don't particularly like them. That's different from the ability to just do it every single week, and for everyone in the country to know that you are the player for that position. And I'm not sure who we have, Adam, in any slot on the pitch where we have the undisputed best player in the league in that position. How do you then, when the crunch comes, and in Scotland it's very, very deliberately set up, isn't it, with the split, these games matter more, they have more pressure than the rest, because it's coming to that final hurdle. Where do you draw that confidence from when you're not absolutely sure you've got the best guys around? It's always a combination of both. We know those flaky players, and we've got plenty of them who have ability, but their confidence is shot to shit. It's that utter consistency that I'm not sure we've had since Steve Davis, and even then it was a Steve Davis in a kind of farewell period of his career. He was a kind of Indian summer part of his career, wasn't it? That kind of vein of form he had through the title winning season, maybe just a little before and a little bit after.
Totally agree. It has to be both. It has to be, and that is what's lacking. I think you see a lot of calls for we just need a leader in there, someone who's brave, someone who's won't give up. And yes, absolutely, we need that mentality, but we also need the players in there who can actually play. Ideally, the both things there, but if we have a combination, great. Yeah, so I think it's missing, and I think in a way. I think I've said this before on here as well. Nothing is ever as good as you think it is, and nothing is ever as bad as you think it is. I think it always needs to be in the middle. I think we've probably proven this year that going from a proper low in September time to hitting February, March and thinking that improved really quickly. In my silly little optimistic head, I think, right, well, we're not as low as we were. In my mind, certainly, we're not as low as we were then. We've dragged a bit of value out of players. We brought in a couple of players that look good. We at least have a sort of functioning idea of what a Rangers team could look like in this type of setup. It should be easier for us then to go and say, let's attack this summer window and see where we get to. But it needs to be those players that we've spoken about for years on podcasts. Guys like Nasser Giga, Manny Fernandez, Connor Barron, Chukwani, Gassama, Chermiti are all decent players, but they are supplementary players to what we need. And we've said that before. We have a team full of supplementary players and not a lot of stars. And I think that is where we're at. And I think for the... I don't know how many years in a row, but for me, the priority for recruitment should always be, let's not go out and get a lot of players for our money. Let's go out and get 3 or 4 players that we think we can hang our hat on. Now, the one player that they thought they could hang their hat on in January has been an absolute disaster, so maybe that doesn't really speak, give us too much confidence. But go out and get what you can get, and then
that's the nature of recruitment, Adam. It is the nature of recruitment. You're not there's no guarantees with these kind of things, and absolutely right.
You have to take that.
Yeah. As I said umpteen times, I think this Rangers squad is full of players who would flourish. Some, God love them, are irredeemable and just aren't going to work here. But I think there are more than people would give credit for or give credit to, who could be fine Rangers players were they playing next to genuine reliability. The 2 centre-halves that you mentioned, I've got no doubt, could be absolutely fine next to an experienced, genuinely strong, commanding centre-back. Not a question in my mind about that. Chermiti next to someone... just playing that wee bit deeper, who will always thread a ball, who always just kind of keeps close enough to him and just brings them into games. Of the 3 squads, I can't remember the numbers offhand. I think you may have them, but the 3 as was title contenders, we've got the youngest average age by some distance, have we not?
I think it was like the 2nd or 3rd in the league at one point. It might have been this season, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, and I think your point there about that, there's always an analogy I use that it's not perfect. I don't think many of them are, but one that's got said before is if you put James Tavernier 30 years before and he does exactly the same things, nothing else changes, he does exactly the same things as he did now, would that have any much impact on Rangers winning a lot of those titles? Probably not. Would it would have been the same roughly? Would he be viewed as a significantly better footballer? Yes, he would. That's not logic. That's just the way teams work. Flip side of that, if we put Stuart McCall into those 3 games post-split, would it have made a material difference in terms of us winning all those games? I personally don't think so, because I don't think that is the skill set that we need. As much as you can be an inspirational leader and have great mentality and all that sort of stuff, you still need the guys there that you can rely on to score the goals and come up with the goods. So, it's both, as we keep saying.
Come back to that in the future in a minute. On the manager, a couple of things, Adam. I'm really keen on your view. You kind of mentioned it. He's not the first. Philippe Clement strikes me immediately as falling into this hole as well. That when they try, after that period of settling in and just stabilising and all the usual kind of stuff, when they try to get the foot on the gas, the car falls to bits because there's no balance in this squad. And really, there's no midfield that can just always be able, even within game, to go on the front foot and then be able to soak it up and just be able to adapt to the particular challenges that are there. Where we seem able to, we were like Frank Lampard at Chelsea, if you remember, could absolutely shut down, could get a great 0-0 away in a particularly difficult game, could go out, especially in Europe, and put, score loads of goals. But finding the balance within those kind of more vague challenges where you have to do a bit of both, he really struggled as a manager to do that. It's as simple, Adam, as something you've banged on for ages. We don't have the midfielders capable of joining everything up.
No, and it's the worry with everyone desperate for pragmatic managers to come in. My view has always been Rangers need to play attacking football that scores lots of goals, because that's what the situation demands. That's what the club demands. That is what other teams will expect us to do. Bringing in a pragmatic manager, as we've seen pre-Christmas, is great. At some point, you hit a wall and you think, well, this is Rangers. We have to go out and dominate these teams and break them down. Guess what? Managers who are used to playing mostly without the ball and being pragmatic can't always flip it, and you don't get that the opposite there. You get the chat about Postecoglou. Why doesn't he just be a bit more pragmatic and shut things up a little bit more? Not so much with a Sean Dyche or David Weston. You should just be a bit more attacking in this game. Why haven't you done that? But it is true, because if we're bringing in Danny Röhl and he's been lauded for his pragmatism and his defensive ability, then he tries to change it and it doesn't work. Is that a big surprise if he's better at the pragmatic side of it, given it's literally his third season of management? For me, that is a big issue. That balance, again, talk about it for players, talk about it for managers, talk about it for the club. We never seem to be able to find the balance. We do okay with one side of it, and then the other side falls down. And I think that is probably true here. He was, I felt, learning from mistakes throughout late winter, early spring.
Yeah.
But it felt really naive, is the word I'm going to keep using, for those 3 games. We just sort of careered into them, and also within those 3 games, there were changes that could have been made at halftime that weren't done. There were changes that were made at halftime that didn't work. There were changes that the opposition did that we didn't react to. All of that just feels a little bit naive, and maybe that is where we are at. We're with a manager who was in his third season of professional football, and is that just to be expected? As unexpected and not good enough as it is for us, maybe that's just the reality.
It probably is. And then you're into that debate, to what extent can a manager learn? Because a lot of these choices, some of them must be just gut, right? And you get a clear idea of what you have, what you need, and you press that button. Yeah, it is interesting. I don't quite buy. We've heard a lot over the last few years about the handbrake being off. It needs to come off, as if we have this attacking gear that is so slick and so cohesive that managers just aren't using it out of what ideology. I mean, I just don't buy that at all. I just don't think, and again, it comes back to that midfield connectivity that Rangers can have that, which is why it looks one or the other, quite extreme, and nothing. There's those kind of equilibrium there. Where the manager has been criticised, and rightly so, and it is going to effectively be, I think, the only discussion really to be had is in his choices. Motherwell, now I must admit, I think you and I expected the Motherwell to arrive at Ibrox to be the one that we had seen in the immediate short term before this game, a team that they were regressing back to their mean and had run the race and were just going to peter out, as plenty of teams do at this stage of the season. And it would appear the manager maybe expected that Motherwell to arrive, hence why he didn't really bother about trying to win that midfield battle in terms of possession, and he went as gung-ho, shall we say, as he did, and got caught out. But we got it back, and that, again, as is so often the case with Rangers at times, get into a fairly good position. Reminded of that Motherwell game under Clement when we were, level with half an hour to go. We played the half an hour as if it was the 4th minute of stoppage time, just utter chaos and kind of panic. Hearts, we play them off the park. We head in at half time, very comfortable, probably too comfortable actually. I think we were just pinging the ball about for the sake of it, rather than really sensing they are nervous, they're very timid, they don't know what they stick or twist here, they're there to be got at, and we should really be 2-0 up at half time, probably game over, maybe. What he didn't foresee, apparently, is what every group chat
everyone else did,
apparently foresaw at halftime, is that they're not going to be as timid anymore. A halftime reset is exactly what they need. You've got nothing to lose now, boys, and maybe making a change in the setup to generate a bit more impetus and get the ball into more dangerous areas. We seemed completely caught out by that possibility, similar to Parkhead, similar to Celtic at Ibrox. We just didn't seem to either anticipate that, or when it happened, deal with it. Now, for me, yes, that is on the manager not to either foresee that and either make proactive changes, or say, look, if this is going to change, here's what I'm asking you to do within 5 minutes, or here's what I'm going to do in terms of substitutions or whatever else. And that just didn't happen. There's something, I know it's a completely different level, Adam, but something of the Southgates about that. It's just like, this game is drifting away, and you apparently have no kind of input into that. So I think the manager is 70% to blame for that. But again, I go back, who on that Rangers field at the second half at Tynecastle especially, or at Parkhead, but by that point I felt the kind of jig was up really, but especially at Tynecastle, who is saying this is changing, this momentum's turning, you do this for 5 minutes, don't care what the manager said, do this, go there, we're going to see this out, because this is not working again. And it's such a daft thing, but this is, I think, what people mean by leadership. It is not crashing through advertising hoardings or smashing heads at corners or whatever else. It's just saying, this has to happen, you have to go there, you come closer to me. Players still have to obviously take those instructions, but I'm just not sure where it exists in this Rangers team, and it's still a problem. But the manager, let's just speak about Danny Röhl then, that inability to affect change until it's far, far, far too late. This disaster seemed to happen in slow motion, Adam, really, over those 3 games.
Yeah, and again, you don't want to presume that you know more than anyone, but like you said, I was in the pub watching that game at Tynecastle, went outside, and one of the first things that was said was, I don't think they can be any worse than that. I've got the fear about this. You know exactly what they're going to do. You could even tell the player they were going to bring on, because that's their first move. It is not tactical genius that we were being outdone by in that game, which is the infuriating thing. In terms of the players, maybe that last 15 minutes of the first half, where they sort of took their foot off the ball, took their foot off the gas a little bit. There was quite a bit of playing about in our half when Hearts were panicking, shelling the ball everywhere, getting annoyed with themselves. The crowd were getting frustrated. I don't know if that's on the manager there to say, I don't think the manager would say, let's just sit back a little bit and get to half time and see what happens. I don't think so. So that's that scruff of the neck in bad times and in good times, like you mentioned, to go and get the kill. I think big teams go and get the kill in those games when they're on top like that, and they understand that the opposition are definitely going to come out at halftime and do that. And then on the flip side, halftime, to me, really obvious thing, they're going to a midfield 3, possibly up for debate if they went to a back 3 or not, which they ended up doing. I'd have been throwing on a little bit more pace, or maybe someone up front like Nadiri a little bit earlier in that game, just to change the focus of it and give them something else to think about, that they can't really go gung-ho here because we've got a little bit more up front. A back 3 up against a sole striker renders it ineffectual. So yeah, that for me was an issue. Motherwell game, yeah, we spoke about it. There's still chances in that game. Great to get us back into the game. Taylor Asgard, the ball falls to him, and again, a range. This is where we talk about mentality. We talk about quality of the squad. We talk about how far things are away. There are still key moments in isolation that a Rangers player should be delivering.
The split looks very different now.
And more often than not, they aren't. So it is these fine margins that you live and die by. And one split-second decision can basically put you 12 points behind where you thought you were. But that is the gig, and that's what needs to happen. So yeah, the manager was learning until he hasn't been learning.
Yeah.
And I think we said recruitment wise, I was broadly comfortable with the rate that it was going at in terms of what we were starting to look at. It is a very low bar given where things were in August time. There is still quite a lot to do. I just wonder if we're a little bit too far gone now with the manager. There's too many checks in the negative column, and obviously because there's too many checks in the negative column, some of the positives do get watered down a little bit. I think he has improved some players. I think, and again, I maybe value this more than most, but I think it's really important. There was a period there where for about 15 games where we scored almost 3 goals per game in the league. Now,
Yeah.
I don't think that's happened for us in 20 odd years. So, in my logical head, I'm thinking if he can do that with some of the terrible players or some of the really poor quality attackers that we've had here, what could he do with a better transfer window? But for me, I think the negatives overwhelm the positives a little bit in that respect now. And when there is going to be such a big rebuild again of players, I think someone else said this the other day. I don't know if it actually can be a rebuild if you've got nothing to build on again. It's just a build, really. For me, it would probably make more sense to start afresh, bring in a fresh manager with a bit more experience. Absolutely, someone that wants to play in the same way, if that's what we're set up to do as a club, in that kind of Red Bull philosophy. Fine. I still have my concerns about that style of play for a team that dominates as much of the ball as we do.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you're playing that style of play, but you've still got players in there who can control tempo as well as do all those other aspects of it, then it might work out okay. So yeah, for me, I think I'd probably be looking to make the change. I didn't think I'd be saying that three weeks ago, if I'm honest, but I think it's just fallen a little bit too far now, on and off the field, if I'm being honest.
Same boat. I've tried to check myself the last couple of weeks. Like, right, we're all very, very disappointed, very, very angry.
Yeah.
If you were happy enough with where it was going a few weeks ago, let's be honest, it's 2 results really. We were done after Tynecastle.
Yeah.
Not overly bothered about the last 2. They're just kind of meaningless, really. Or they don't add anything to the conversation, in my opinion. But it's just the inability to shake off that doubt that when push comes to shove, he sees the big picture, he's cool enough, and he makes the right calls, and he can inspire what he has. And this Rangers circus thing, Adam, it's just constant. And it's back again. His handling of a completely avoidable, unnecessary nonsense with the captain and that recognition in what was ultimately a friendly.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, it was completely done. Rangers will seek trouble where it doesn't need to be found, it would appear,
Yeah.
and nothing really changes in that regard. But for the manager's credibility, I really would worry if we yet again stumble into the new season under this completely naive misapprehension that it's a completely blank slate and it's all go again, because none of those things ever exist. It's part of a continuum. And unless we do sign those 3 or 4 absolute blockbuster signings, it's just staggering on, isn't it?
Yeah. So again, if we sign those 3 or 4 blockbuster signings, I think who the manager is matters slightly less. It doesn't matter a lot less, but yeah. So that's the main thing for me. That is the 100% priority. Get out there and get a goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, and a striker that you can hang your hat on. Whatever you need to do outside of that, I'm not too, I'm not too bothered. But that is the key. Go out and get that early. I know it's not always possible. The World Cup's going to slow it down. Blah blah blah. But that should be the priority for me. But yeah, I think I said a couple of weeks ago that it felt a little bit different to the Clermont 2024 run in. it probably doesn't now in terms of what we should look at going forwards. I wasn't up for Clermont continuing after that season, but appreciated kind of where we were with that. We often wait until we have to make a decision rather than just making a decision.
Yeah.
And I don't.
Most clubs
don't,
are like that, Adam, aren't they, these days?
Yeah. But I just don't see. I don't see why you wouldn't, given how this has been handled. And the Tavernier thing, I think, is such an easy win. Also, on the other side, I'm not sure I'm delighted with your captain storming away.
No, absolutely not.
5 minutes after, or storming away to be told that when he's not playing and then coming back. But I appreciate there's a whole other scenario around that. Both things can be true. It can be handled badly by everyone. And I do think he deserved a bit more of a send off than was given. There's not really been much on socials or on the website commemorating all that sort of stuff. So again, both things can be true. I wouldn't want the manager kowtowing to players. That was a big thing for me. Russell Martin, first game of the season, Motherwell coming out and being so bullish,
Billy Big Both, yeah,
indicating that basically Tavernier and Raskin were issues and that wouldn't happen on my watch. And then 3 days later, they're back in the team to try and win a game, which baffles me. Again, seemingly sensible decisions that just don't get made. So yeah, the one thing I think I want to discuss and get your take on it as well is it's all been sort of lost a little bit in the last 6 months of getting back on the wagon and getting into a decent position. I'm not seeing a huge amount takeover 49ers wise in terms of plans, things happening off the pitch primarily. I was thinking that even last summer there would be a lot of here's what we're going to do, we're going to look at this, we want to be this type of club, here's what we want to aim for. I'm not hearing an awful lot of that back then, and I haven't heard much now either. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. It does feel like we're geared up for transfer windows, and not really much else is happening.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried, just in general. Listen, I was optimistic about the change and a level up, I think, on the previous ownership in terms of their operation and kind of background in sport and in football. I like the detachment, I'll be honest. I've been kind of consistent in this. Wealthy ownership gets you out of trouble, but I don't think it's good when big decisions need to be made, and adults in the room was certainly a comment that I used, and I don't think it was ridiculous to have hope that that's what that represented, just as it's not unfair to be very disappointed by what we've seen over the last year. I was quite worried probably February time last year, Adam, just talking the bus groups, Rangers fans that you kind of listen to, old timers, guys that have been there for a while, seriously considering whether this is worth the money.
Yeah.
Especially in the current climate. And the takeover dampened that.
Yeah.
So I think you quite understandably kind of got rid of all that for a while. And then I think we're back here now. I'm hearing the same kind of things. I am really concerned about drift, about apathy, about a feeling that this is what was seen as basically the last chance to really get this right. And if they can't get it right, who the hell else is got the pockets deep enough? They've got the kind of background, the contacts, the kind of operational expertise to really get us on the right footing. And that's quite a deep void that a lot of people could be staring into, and a lot of people saying, okay, I don't think I'm misquoting or misparaphrasing here. I wouldn't surprise me if they saw this as a learning year, as horrific as that seems to fans, but they better fucking learn and enact those learnings next year. But I think, like you, I was really disappointed that takeovers are not done in a night. there's a lot of work that gets done from a business perspective, sure, but surely in all aspects of understanding the club, that you're able to hit the ground as fast as you can. And I was quite underwhelmed, and obviously the managerial choice was further underwhelming, and everything else was just, this isn't really what I had hoped. Now maybe that's just me again projecting irrational hopes onto this. But I'm getting a wee bit annoyed, I guess, in general, from an organisational ownership point of view, managers, players. There are 3 competitions that tell us where Scottish football is technically compared to the rest of Europe. It's not very good. And Rangers can bring technical players in, or technocrat managers in, who are technically superior to their colleagues and contemporaries. But this is to ignore completely the physical challenges of the Scottish game and the mental challenges of playing for this football club in the condition that we're in, when we are not top dogs. We want to be, but we're behind. We don't have the long list of recent trophy wins and everything else. That the weight of that, I think, is incredibly difficult, and it just seems to get ignored, and young player after young player. Nothing will change until you can marry the two, in my opinion, and that does kind of come from the top, or at least the most senior football person in the building. And I'm not convinced by that, Adam, and I really am. I'm quite concerned generally about where we go next, because it's still a big problem. I mean, we're recording this, mate, and it looks like Arsenal, for example, are going to kind of stagger over the line. Not unsurprisingly, they desperately want this title, and they're tensing up. They're getting quite edgy. They've needed City to throw some bones their way, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
But how long's that project been in place? Where
6
it's one
years.
signing one summer, one big signing the next summer. They can't do it all at once. They've spent a lot of money. They're a huge club in the biggest league in the world. Of course they spend money, but they still can't spend money in those kind of ways. It seems quite gradual.
Yeah.
Rangers can't do gradual. We had a window of opportunity with Gerrard, I guess. It was never said explicitly, but you've got 3 years to win the title, because we know what those 3 years mean. It means stopping 10 in a row. And even then, it's conditions that were helpful with the pandemic, and Celtic really fallen off course with the manager and his grip on things, and they sign a goalkeeper that doesn't have any hands, and whatever else. Everything we have, you go back to those players. You have the best goalkeeper in the league. Philip Hollander's the best centre half in the league. Steve Davis is the best midfielder in the league, and Kemar Roof is the best striker in the league. And everybody knew it for that season, and everything just clicks. That's great. But I mean, mate, I'm left coming back to this issue that I've spoken about and written about for 10 years and appreciated does not find a welcome audience. But I don't know how this has turned around, because the time, even if it is the right guy with the right guys and it's going to be built on, it gets eaten up. The roof caves in, and we're liars, right? We are liars. We said, no, it's been a disaster. We've been 20 points behind, or how many points? It's been an absolute shambles season after season. All we want is just to get close, get to the split. Involved. Bollocks. Rangers could lose the title by goal difference on the last day, and the whole narrative would be fucking shitbags.
Yeah.
So we lie to ourselves constantly. How does anybody build anything under those pressure? Then do you need your man, or someone like Gerrard, in terms of the stature? Now, you and I have met pretty much every Rangers manager player that's been through the doors the last few years, old players, managers. There's only 2 really that I've spoken to that I think are wow. They have a presence, and Gerrard absolutely was that, and he probably could attract players that other Rangers managers couldn't get, or other alternatives couldn't get, if we had gone a different route in 2018. So maybe it does need just that kind of stature, but where does it come from? I really worry about how on earth we buck this trend. The only thing, so I'll let you speak in a minute, I'm just trying to download thoughts for 3 weeks. The only hope that I have, I guess, is that I think Celtic probably will win the league tomorrow, but they're a very old and I think they look quite a jaded team. I think an average Rangers or Celtic team does catch Hearts and does get ahead of them and does beat them to the finish line this season. So I'm not convinced that they're in any great hungry, lean, mean shakes either. But it's the hardest job in Scotland, this manager's job, in my opinion. I don't mean Scottish football, Scottish life, and to play for Rangers isn't much easier.
I totally agree on the Celtic point. I think they're not in a great place. Again, just one defeat away from civil war. Doesn't matter how many titles you rack up, it always seems to come back quite quickly. I don't think any of their fans have faith that they will all of a sudden appoint a manager in the summer and have the greatest transfer windows of all time. So more of the same there, you would think. Hearts, for all the plaudits, and absolutely if they win it, they'll deserve it. I think I checked the other day, they're only 8 points ahead of what they had the points total 2 years ago.
Yeah,
so your point there about City, the key thing about this title race is Celtic have dropped 20 odd points more than they probably would have at this point. So, but Hearts will improve. We know that. Again, we've said it'd be really interesting to see what happens there, because I could see a world where they win the league and Tony Bloom still wants a new manager, like the whole Brighton piece. So that would be quite interesting to see how that works. Yeah, for us, I think that the long term plan needs to be off the field, and that's why I'm a bit concerned, because we've been treating execs like managers, really, and they've been coming in, they get 6 months and then they're out the door. Again, it's because you haven't hired the right ones yet. But my issue now is that they're behind the 8 ball. There was quite a lot of goodwill. January to April. The new CEO has been in for nearly 2 months. There hasn't even been a 5-minute interview on RTV. There will now be some end of season ones, and all of the replies will be sack the manager, sack the manager, sack the manager. To it just feels silly to me that, again, we're coming into trying to do all our publicity and things in a negative area, whereas we could have been getting a new academy chief, for example, at some point over the last however many years that is, building out the exec base. There's people that have left, Parag Marathi, obviously, and the is it Gene something that have left? I don't think they've been replaced yet. I don't think we've heard any of that. There are no plans. What are we doing? There's been some consultations about improving Ibrox, not even anywhere near the initial phases. What's the plan? What's the recruitment plan? Who are we targeting in terms of what markets? What club do we want to be? I think all of that sort of stuff that is marketing material of we want to be here's our 2 to 3 year plan should still be there, even if ultimately you lose 2 games in a fortnight and the manager's out the door. We should still have both of those things, and we don't at this point. I take a learning year for sure, but they have a template there from Leeds that they could have, in terms of off the pitch, where they could say, like, here's what's working here, here's what we think. Doesn't take very much to sort of pull that together. I haven't heard any of that stuff. So that's the worrying aspect for me, because as much as it's great, the funding and financial backing, we haven't struggled with spending money over the last 5 years. We've struggled with spending it terribly, chasing after managers that weren't suited, or giving the keys to the kingdom to sporting directors that weren't suited, and them spending a fortune. Just being willing to spend the money is admirable, but it's not great. It's not where we want to be. And to your point about Gerrard, yes, absolutely. But Gerrard masked so many deficiencies behind the scenes as well. Yeah. We've seen that when he left because of the disagreements, however true they are, about funding and all that sort of stuff. So the back office needs to match up to the front office in terms of what they're doing, what the expectations are, what we're actually trying to achieve. And I don't know if it does, because we don't hear anything other than what the manager tells us, pretty much. So once again, it's going to be a long summer of, are we getting a new manager? Will there be a new sporting director? Will someone else come in that will be leaving? Will all these players leave, or will we be left with them again and their contracts running down? Are we going to bring in the 10 players probably that we need? It does feel a little bit like Groundhog Day, and I don't blame anybody that loses faith in it, because I think my season ticket is now over £900 a month. That is not insignificant. £900 a year, sorry. That is not insignificant at all. And without much really to hang your hat on, without someone saying this is the plan, this is what we're going for, it is tough to not let it get to you.
No, I'm exactly the same. Both are likely to be a grand next season, sorry.
Yeah.
And the only thing, really, if we're all being honest, the only thing kind of keeping on is either habit or what really is the football fan drug, but it might change.
Yeah.
And it usually does change. And when you're, one of the two big dogs, you'll get your day again. I think that's a bit of an illusion. Personally, there's nothing guaranteed about that. And yeah, it is an interesting one. I mean, I tend not to get too caught up in the off-field stuff because it's not my wheelhouse at all. However, I completely agree. It is important. Everything starts from the top and should flow down. For the CEO, the new CEO, especially at this time, not to be kind of everywhere. And again, outlining maybe detailed plans for future. We know that it never happens, but again, some kind of direction. A world should not exist, Adam, where I'm on RTV more than the Rangers chief exec, right? That's
Isn't that also what we were getting sold? It's someone who knows the environment, knows the culture, knows the league, knows where we are, can come in and make these sort of sensible decisions. Now it might be there's a barrage of publicity waiting until the season ends, but as I've said, we're now behind the 8 ball. Every comment is going to be sack the manager, sack this player, get this player in. Off field needs to be you need to make hay when the sun's shining, I guess is my point, and I don't think we've done that.
Well, the sun's barely come out behind the clouds. I think best in class has scarred, to be honest. Rangers executives, tough. We need to know who the king is, and everyone else kind of follows in line. Just a very quick point before we wrap up, really about tomorrow and Hearts' situation and whatever else. The inevitable, well, should have gone for McInnes, should have gone for Shankland, should have gone for, again, just general Scottish talent, understand the league, etc., etc. Go back to my point again, people who do understand the league, who understand the challenge that Rangers have, I think is important. Still have to have that technical ability, however, that's sometimes the problem. The only caveat I would continue to put out there until I'm blue in the face is that performing well, overperforming, punching up for Hearts and for Motherwell is nowhere near transferable to performing under the pressure of this club. It is not the same thing. The style of football, for example, is not the same thing. But very interested in, this is obviously not a Celtic or Motherwell show, but if Celtic went for the Motherwell manager, I'm not sure that really works nicely in terms of a fit for what they probably need. So it seems to be a rule for as long as I can remember, when players used to play very well against us, used to give us bloody noses, especially strikers. But we don't play like that. We couldn't win a league playing like that. It just and we get lulled into thinking something else. But yeah, your thoughts on that before we wrap up for the weekend of the season.
We've said that for a while, and we'll hear it again all summer. You only need to look at Bojan Majowski, who I was told was an absolute sure thing for years, and there's no doubt that he would be a great player. Now, I was for it in the summer in very, very specific circumstances because we needed certain players. But the idea that just because you've been here and played here before, it's just not. It's not reality. Again, we need leaders. We need Rangers men. We have had a significant amount of ex-Rangers players on the staff. We've had a significant amount of Rangers fans and Scottish players in the squad. None of them have been good enough in the last 5 years. Now, absolutely, we could get other ones that could be good, but it comes back to we need better quality. Whether it's better quality Scottish players or better quality players in general, I really couldn't care less. Whoever it is, I really do not mind who it is. But the idea that just because you've played in this league before means that you are capable of being a Rangers player has just been proven time and time again to not be true. I slightly disagree with the Motherwell manager, just as I know we're way over here, but I think that style of play is a big club style of play, and I think it is similar to maybe what Celtic would like to do. Whether he can make the jump, he's shown himself to be a really capable manager again at that level, but it's transferable in terms of the tactical style, I think. But whether he jumps up again, who knows? In terms of anything else, I don't know where Rangers go to be honest, in more ways than one. But I don't have any ideas for the manager. I think Gerrard will get mentioned again, and maybe we can repeat that trick again. But like I said earlier on, we need the back of house to be functioning as well, so that we don't have to rely on a big superpower persona manager to make us all feel better. It'd be nice if we could just do,
because that's not a plan. That
in the
isn't a plan. Having the kind of superhero thing. Yeah. Just one final word on the Scottish players. They absolutely could supplement. We could have bought better Scottish players. We can buy better Scottish players, but they would still supplement the squad. I don't see any Scottish player really that. The Shankland debate is reopened. That Shankland debate was not happening last season when he was turning up for pre-season at Hearts overweight, by the way. So let's not rewrite history there. But in terms
unless we want to go and get Lewis Ferguson and Billy Gilmore, I'd be absolutely delighted with that. Go and spend the best part of 50 million getting the both of them in. But anything else outside of that, I don't see much.
Yeah, we shall see, guys. We'll probably pop back on throughout the summer when there's stuff to recap. All the best for the weekend. Lucky those of you. I picked the wrong weekend to go on holiday. I really, really, really did. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone else. Until the next time. Bye for now.